We are live, episode 5 of PB Betting, college football week 4 analysis. Mr. Paisley, great to be back.
Yeah, Case. Happy to be back again for another episode here. College football's flying by, but another great week of games we'll recap. And not a great slate again. Those ones are coming down the line here, but again, definitely some actionable elements we could look to bet on this week for week 4.
Yeah, it's very true. And it is flying by. I can't believe we're already previewing week 4 by the end of this episode.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll quickly just get into our recap from week 3. It wasn't great. A lot of red on the board, similar to week 2, actually, maybe a little bit worse. But we were way up week 1. I'm still even 50% overall for considering how red the board looks this week. We'll take that. Jared's just slightly below 500, but biggest takeaway, if you're betting units, which you should be, we are 6-0 on the locks. So that is everything going on. The takeaway, we're 6-0 on the lock. So if you're doing 1 unit for every normal bet or whatever, and you're doing 2 or 3 units on locks, I mean, you should really still be plus money overall, even with our current slate. So we're hanging in there. I had Bama minus 16.5, which I love. That was probably my best selection of last week. I did say I thought they were going to win by a few touchdowns, and turned out to be true, even though the first couple drives were a little weird in that game. Also, Notre Dame getting it done for me. And then my lock, of course, Tennessee minus 49 covered that one, I think, in the first quarter.
Yeah, got to stick with the positives after a tough week, but locks are 6-0. On fire in that. 2 different types of locks this week. Tennessee, like you said, covered easily. I think they might have covered the 49 in the first quarter. Just absolutely destroying Kent State, like we talked about. That Kent State is terrible, might be the worst team in college football. And my pick, UCF, was a little bit closer. If people stayed up to watch that game late at Saturday night, I turned it off. It was 31-13. I had a rough day. I was like, this pick was going to, bring it all back. And then I saw they kept scoring. I turned it back on. Literally scored with about 10-15 seconds left in the game. So absolute thriller against TCU there last night, but happy to get the locks 2-0.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I was not coherent by the end of that night to get the end of the UCF game. So you'll have to take the lead on that one, Jared. I did watch the highlights. It was a crazy game, but great pick overall though. We did cash the locks, and at the end of the day, that's very important.
And one quick note, the Oregon State. I mean, I don't know if we're going to touch on them later in the podcast. We both had them. It's usually a big play or a big, thing if we both like a team. A lot of agreements across the board, but kind of showed up in the first quarter, came out with a lot of fight, and then, Oregon kind of came back and looked themselves and looked what we thought they'd be. So that was a little disappointing because it was such a high number. They were keeping it close for most of the first half and then just kind of fell apart. And then my favorite pick from you, Case, Notre Dame minus 7.5. Got to love that. We're going back to the national championship. It's back on. Good.
If Notre Dame does win out, it will be interesting at the end of the season. We'll see, but
will be interesting. And we might get to it, but tough MAC team coming into Notre Dame again this week. Deja vu could be happening, so Notre Dame fans don't be too hyped up.
Who do they have this week?
That's the Miami-Ohio game.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Okay. Right around the same spread as last debacle. So let's get past 1 week at a time for these Notre Dame fans.
We'll keep our eye on it. All right. Well, we might as well just jump into the recap from last week. That was our betting recap. Now we'll just run through a few games here. Alabama, full control in Madison, 42-10. I know we just talked about it. I did have the cover there with Alabama. A little bit of a weird start. I feel like the first couple drives of that game, Wisconsin looked like they had a shot to keep this thing closer. But I think what turned all that momentum was like a 4th and 1 in the late first quarter. Wisconsin was driving down, trying to go down and I think take the lead in that game. I think it was 3-0, or maybe they were trying to kick a field goal. But it feels like that's right when it turned. And then once Alabama got the ball and scored quick, and then scored again quick, and then scored again right before half, and it was like 17-3 or 21-3. I mean, at that point, the ship was sailed. The game for me kind of went how I thought it would. But overall, I think Alabama is, they're a serious contender. They're a really good team, even with the Nick Saban switch and obviously some things going on there. Alabama, though, continued to look good and really just controlled Wisconsin all game.
Yeah, they finally had their full offensive line back, Alabama. They had some injuries, so that was maybe some of the flukiness we saw in the UCF game. So run game was looking good. They couldn't even touch Milroe back there in the pocket, so the offense looked really good. And you're right, that 4th and 1, I was watching that game early, and Wisconsin came out, had a formation. I think Alabama or Wisconsin called timeout. They come back in the same formation, and I think everybody in the stadium knew they were going to run the ball right up the middle. They ran the ball right up the middle. Alabama guy comes flying through, blasts them. Game turned on its head like that. Tyler Van Dyke did get injured early in the first quarter. It also did kind of throw off the whole Wisconsin vibe early. Just a tough game for Wisconsin fans, just to keep it close. But then that score at the end of the half was the final nail in the coffin, and then it was basically a blowout from there. So, yeah, Alabama, it's a good road win for them. Wisconsin's not that great, but it's still hard to go on the road, non-conference opponent, and win. So, got to give Alabama some props. But they'll definitely have some bigger, tougher matchups down the road here.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't quite a test as much as Alabama as we just wanted to see them kind of go to Wisconsin and see what they could do as a favorite. And they did what they needed to do. Nothing bad to say about Alabama. Perfect game really all around. And for Wisconsin, it was a tough – you weren't expected to win this game. You still have a whole season in front of you. You're not really right there yet to be competing for a playoff spot or anything like that, especially with how things are shaping out. So some things to take away for Wisconsin as well. But
yeah, just one more point too. I'd like to point out, if you listen to the preview pod, gave out Wisconsin under 7 wins, and now we never wish for injury upon anybody, but now with the starting quarterback out for the rest of the year, they claimed the backup did not look good. The rest of the game couldn't really throw the ball, so we were a little down on Wisconsin. Now they lose their star quarterback. Could be some nice season-long win total there for us in Wisconsin.
That's true. That's a very good point. Might be a long season for the Badgers. Next game on the radar here, LSU coming back to take down South Carolina in a thrilling 36-33 game. Game day was there, was in South Carolina. There's a lot to take away from this game. The officiating was awful, in my opinion, in this game. There was that personal foul call on the pick six with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But there was also there was problems in the first half that took a touchdown off the board for South Carolina. So they had the chances. The officials, were some really tough breaks there for South Carolina. But I don't know what to make of this game. LSU, I guess they hung in there. They played it through, and they ended up getting the win on the road. But South Carolina really felt like they were in control and should have won this game and felt like they were the better team through 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, this was definitely the craziest game of the weekend in the noon slot on last Saturday. You could not start the game better for South Carolina than what they did. They had the crowd juice. They were up 17-0. They blocked a punt with a guy flipping over the offensive line, blocking with his ankle. It was just the wildest stuff. The coach is chest bumping people. And sometimes when you get that much momentum and they're celebrating that crazy, then it's like, okay, some regression is going to happen. Got to halftime. It was a 7-point game or 3-point game, I think it was. It was a little bit tighter. So South Carolina definitely could have built on that lead. Quarterback goes out right before halftime. Then it got a little dicey with that backup quarterback who, again, couldn't really throw the ball. The depth of some of these teams, it's hard with the transfer portal, but these backups to starters are a huge, drastic difference. But I think you're right. I think I liked South Carolina the whole game. They played really good. I'm still not sold on LSU. I think their quarterback is legit, though. I do like that Nussmeier. I think he could stand in there and make some tough throws. The receivers are nice. They could run the ball with that offensive line. But the defense still was giving up chunk play after chunk play, explosive play. So it was a good win for LSU. I don't think they deserved it, but still going to be a lot tougher test now down the line here in the SEC play. Yeah,
if any team didn't deserve this win, it would probably be LSU out of any team in the country. Especially with –
they probably hate us, but just be consistent.
That's true. No, that was a thriller, though. I was at the casino out in Pittsburgh watching that one, and it was a fun one to watch, the back and forth. I really thought South Carolina was going to hang on, but nonetheless, here we are. LSU squeezes that out. Next game on the list here, Missouri, ranked Missouri taking on a ranked Boston College team. Didn't really think BC would be ranked in this game, but obviously after the huge win over Florida State, of course, they are well-deserved of an AP top 25. Boston College was in control for most of this game, or at least in the first half. I mean, they were ahead. I remember monitoring this game while watching the LSU South Carolina game, and I don't know what to make of Missouri. I feel like there should be some cause for concern there. I know they weren't an extremely heavy favorite, and it was a competitive game, but I feel like Missouri, at least on a talent level, should have been able to, number one, not play from behind most of this game, and then number two, they should have just been able to win this game much more controllably. But all credit to Boston College keeping this game close and almost getting the big win.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri was as high as a 17.5-point favorite. Game finishes only a 6-point win. So I took more away from Boston College, like you're saying. I think they're actually a little bit better than what people are giving them credit for. They went into Florida State and beat them, but now we know what Florida State looks like, so it kind of loses its luster. And then, they go into Missouri here and actually hold their own. You're right, they were leading for some of the first half. So I think Bill O'Brien's doing a really good job there. Boston College could be a team to monitor going forward. It's tough for Missouri. They didn't play anybody the first 2 weeks. Now they finally get somebody as an opponent. I would downgrade them slightly, but I wouldn't sell all my stock with them. I think they looked okay. This game was weird, too, because I had the under that I posted on the page. It was high scoring the first 2 quarters. It was back and forth, and I'm like, this is over. This is no way. Kind of stalled the rest of the game. There wasn't a lot of points scored in the second half. So, I think this game overall, just taking more from Boston College. They really impressed me in this one.
Yeah, Boston College, because I know we're not going to really talk about them later in the show, they really have a chance to win a lot of games this year. They have a big game this weekend against Michigan State. I mean, if they win that game, I mean, they really should at this point. They're home. I mean, you got some momentum. Win that game, you got Western Kentucky, Virginia. You got to play VT, but I mean, they didn't look good. Syracuse, SMU, North Carolina, Pitt, tons of winnable games for BC. If they're as good as we think they are right now, they could be a 9-10 win season by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, ACC's down. It's wide open. Why not? Boston College Eagles, look out.
Oregon finally looks good against Oregon State, 49-14. I mean, I don't know if I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid and doing exactly what Vegas wants me to do every week. Because week one, I was fine when there was nothing to look back on. Like, that's the weirdest thing, is my best week so far was week 0 and week 1 when we had no data. Then I come in week 2, week 3, I'm saying to myself, all right, I saw how these teams played the last few weeks. Now I'm going to try to play the line a little bit, use my knowledge. What do I think's going on? I should just stick to my gut initially, week 1 philosophy, because I felt like Oregon State should have been in this game, and they really should have covered. I mean, I didn't think – I mean, we saw Oregon struggling. We saw Oregon State playing pretty well. They're at home. It's a rivalry game. Oregon didn't even look like they could beat anybody in the country by a couple touchdowns after escaping Idaho week 1, putting up 24 points in that game. What a joke. They come out and they take full control. They looked like the Oregon we thought they were going to be all season long. It was a little close in the first quarter for sure. I know we were talking about that. Oregon State kind of kept it close in the first half, but once the second half started, Oregon just blew the doors off and took control and handled this game no problem, including the spread.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to your point, there's a lot of podcasts I follow, a lot of research I do going into this, a lot of friends that we know that bet a lot. I don't think anybody had a good week this past weekend. It wasn't just us. So sometimes it's just the way the market goes. Sometimes, everybody's in agreement with something, everyone loses. I think just one small point just kind of linked to the NFL, because I've been having some slight success with the NFL and not as much early on here in college. I was kind of number grabbing a little bit in the NFL. If I thought a number was too high, or I took the Raiders plus 9.5 against the Ravens, they went outright. I think you can't maybe use the exact same logic in college that I learned this week, because we thought, that number's way too high, right? It's 17, 16 points, whatever it was we took it at, and they end up losing by 30. There's just so much more variance with college where a team really could blow them out. You don't see a ton of blowouts in the NFL. So I feel like that's just something to maybe just keep in mind and monitor. You're always tweaking with your process and stuff. You're not going to never grab a number that's way too high in college, but I think sometimes you grab these great numbers like we had, and then they still don't even come close to covering, where in the NFL, it actually does come because the margins are less thin. So just something to take away from that game. But yeah, Oregon looked a lot better. Oregon State showed some fight. We didn't think they were that great going into it anyway. So I don't think Oregon's problems are fully fixed. They still need to win a couple of some solid teams, but just something to keep in mind on a betting whole point there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I tend to sometimes buy a couple points if the spread is tighter. If it's 2.5, if I'm getting 2.5, maybe I'd like to buy 4.5 and try to get over that field goal in those tighter margin games. I do it for the NFL too once in a while. But yeah, that's a great point on the in college. I mean, if you have a 16, 17 point favorite, there's a really good percentage chance that team will win by 40.
Yeah, just another example that came to mind was the Michigan-Texas game that we previewed in week 2. It was plus 7.5 in the NFL. That's a huge key number. It's a huge key number in betting across the board. And then they lost by 28 or whatever it was. So sometimes you grab those great numbers. It's great value at the time. But then in college, there is just so much dichotomy, so much variance that could go on, and it could really sway one way or the other. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah.
A&M looking good with a new quarterback. They take down Florida in the swamp, figuratively and literally. It was pouring down there this week. 33-20. This game ticked me off. Number one, I didn't know Texas A&M had any real quarterback on the roster until watching this game. So knowing that, maybe I wouldn't have taken Florida to win this game. Also, Florida's just an absolute disgrace. I mean, they are so bad. They couldn't move the ball. They looked terrible. And I'm really disappointed. I mean, I knew they were bad, but I just was sold on the point that Napier would be coaching for his job, essentially, and they would look a lot better and they would possibly get the win outright. At least thought they would cover 4.5. And just when there was some hope in the second half, by the way, Florida goes down in the third quarter, scores quick. I think they made it like 20-10 or something. I knew it was still an uphill battle, but I was like, all right, some momentum. Let's get a stop. 5 seconds later, Texas A&M gets the ball and scores in like 1 or 2 plays, and it was just completely blown off. But nonetheless, Texas A&M did look better for sure than they did the first couple of weeks on offense. I know, they were playing Florida, so I'm not going to get on the horse yet for Texas A&M. But still impressive. They get the win on the road, and any win, especially in the SEC, is tough. Good win for Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think the injury report is something that's very tough this year, or maybe just all the time in college, especially as bettors. We want all the information we want to know. Is Wegman all week? Then they switch it to a more mobile, completely different style than what Connor Wegman was. Florida going into the game had some questions, and Napier said we're going to play both, which we all know that's going to be a disaster most of the time. But then it was, no, it's going to be Lagway for most of the week. So this game was just like kind of weird to kind of judge. If you knew it was going to go one way or another with a starting quarterback, could have been a little different. So just some, again, to keep in mind going forward with some of these injury reports. It's just very murky and very weird. We'll get to the Utah game with Cam Rising. It's a very weird situation going on there. So yeah, this was, again, this game I took away more from Florida just being really, really bad. I think the program is just in a mess. I think they have nice players, and I think that's why we found some value on them last week, because they have a nice roster. They have some nice guys in some spots, but it's like Florida State. The talent's not the issue at some of these places. I don't know what's going on at some of these places. I don't know if it's the coaching, the vibes, the whatever, the in-game stuff, but Florida is an absolute mess. Their schedule does not get easier. They kind of needed this one with losing the Texas A&M game. So this was a tough look for Florida.
Yeah. No, Florida gets to 6 wins at this point would be a very impressive season. And 6 wins with their schedule is not, in Nebraska, for example, if they had Nebraska's schedule, Florida still might have won 10 games with those 6 wins. They're playing a lot of tough teams down there.
Yeah, and some with Texas A&M too, we called that this team will get better as it goes on. The first week against Notre Dame, it's a whole new, brand new coach, brand new system with offense they're trying to put in. So now I think this change of quarterback actually plays better with this system. It's more an RPO-based system, so a little more mobility for the quarterback. So I think we'll keep your eye on Texas A&M. I think they could get a lot better as the season goes on. Not to say that Florida's an absolute joke and Texas A&M, they beat nobody. Like you said, still impressive. So watch this team going forward. I think they're just going to get better as they go on week by week here.
Jared, who gets into the playoff? A 10-2, or should I say an 11-1 Texas A&M, or an 11-1 Notre Dame at the end of the season?
If Texas A&M loses, or I guess they wouldn't lose in that scenario, but if
they would win out. Oh, I guess that can't happen because they'd be in the SEC championship.
Probably, but I think Notre Dame has that edge, so I think they have to get in. And Northern Illinois will probably be top 10 by that point, so I think it'll be a good loss.
Okay. Forgot about the NIU top 10. All right, if that's the case, then sure. We'll see.
They're going to get a little bit. They're going to be in.
Yeah, that fight, we may have underrated that. Quick side note, because I think we're doing pretty good on time here. That number 12 team is that race. I think is going to be a lot more interesting in like November, something that we've never had. Like November college football, sometimes I feel like things are kind of baked by them. We kind of know who the top teams are. We know if your team is in or out. You know this. You're playing some. Like as a Penn State fan, I just always know that back half's always like Maryland and Rutgers, and like who cares about these teams? Mm-hmm. This year, like I know we've talked about it before, but there's going to be 20 teams in the country in late November that all think they can make the top 12, and then on top of that, you're going to have probably 5 or maybe 4 group of 5 teams that think they could get the 12th seed, and like we're going to have like 25, 30 teams by Thanksgiving thinking like, hey, we have a chance to make the college football playoff. And it's just crazy because it's going to add, I think, a new element. And we've known this, but I'm just looking forward to it. It's going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, group of 5 race is going to be awesome to see. Like you said, it's going to be teams from all over the country, not just one conference kind of going at each other. You know, there's going to be a lot of teams. And I think overall too, like you said, it's going to be a ton of teams going at it. Yeah. So like you can't really take a game off. Like they were talking about load management at the beginning of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you have to win every game that you can, and there's going to be no room. And the best part is it's all up for people debating it. It's not even computerized or anything. So some teams that's 9-3 versus 10-2 might think they're better. So it's going to be real fun debates going forward.
Speaking of the college football playoff, if you're a fan of either of these teams, you don't have to worry about that. Backyard brawl, West Virginia West Virginia blows their lead to Pittsburgh in the second half. This game, first of all, I don't really like either of these teams. I respect West Virginia a lot more than Pittsburgh, at least. But it was fun. It's a big, rivalry in the Northeast and West Virginia and western parts of Pennsylvania around Pittsburgh. It's a cool game, being a PA native. But man, this game was hard to watch. I think they were 2 terrible teams playing each other, and I was in Pittsburgh at a casino watching it. And I had to deal with all these Pitt fans, acting like they were going to win the national championship. And this game went back and forth, but West Virginia blowing a 10-point lead in the second half. This is after, by the way, Pittsburgh blocked a punt for a touchdown. They still, after that, found themselves down 10. I kept live betting West Virginia, and, man, it drives me crazy because they had the game won and people were texting. The game was over, and I never do this, but I actually felt like the game was over when they were up 10. I this one really stings. But enough about me. Complete choke job by West Virginia. I mean, they're not a good football team. And the fact that Neil Brown got off the hot seat last year, winning 9 games. Well, he got right back on it after this start. And looking at their schedule, if they lose to Kansas this week, they might be 1-6 by the time October ends. Not good for West Virginia. They really needed this win. They didn't get it. For Pittsburgh, I mean, congratulations. Who cares? You're not going to go anywhere this season, but you're unbeaten. Got a big rivalry win, so good for you. Offense, I guess, looked fine, but just more about what a joke West Virginia is and choke job of all time.
Love it, kids. Very passionate. Sometimes our bets fuel these passions, as we know, fandoms. But I wasn't sure if you're a Penn State fan or not with the Pitt hate. I love it. But overall, I think you're completely right. I think these teams are pretty terrible. Their defenses are very bad, as we saw with a crazy ending like that. You kind of have to have some huge holes in your defense and some pretty big explosive plays to get back into a game like that. But I think we were both on West Virginia. We both loved them. It was a great play for 3.5 quarters. And like we say all the time, you got to complete it for the full 4. It's hard. It flips on its head like that. That's what makes college football so much fun, like I had with UCF when they were down the whole time. But then it also does suck when you're on the losing end of it with West Virginia, who controlled most of the game. But yeah, like we said, after week 1 when they played Penn State, I think West Virginia is not that great at all. I think we solidified that. Pitt, they were pretty garbage going into the year, we thought. So maybe a little slight upgrade, but still maybe can't really do too much. But that was a fun backyard brawl. Not too fun if you had West Virginia.
Yeah, wasn't fun for me. It was cool to watch, but not fun for me. Colorado also go from one negative to another. Colorado defense actually showed up against Colorado State, getting the win 28-9. Not the game we had last year, not the shootout in the 40s that we had last year. I did have the over, so completely wrong about that. Colorado State just seemed to struggle, and Colorado does the job. And finally, for once, this season looked pretty respectable, and the team that maybe they thought they would be getting the win against their rival.
Yeah, this is where betting's so hard, because who would have thought Colorado's defense shows up and puts a single digit on Colorado State when Colorado State had all the motivation, all the hate towards Colorado after they get them in their building. And what do? They put up 9 points in the entire game, and they scored late too in the game. It was basically 3 points the entire game. I was watching this game on one of the side TVs, and I couldn't believe just the ineptitude of the offense from Colorado State. It really blew my mind. Colorado looked impressive a little bit, but not a ton. But yeah, I just cannot believe Colorado State talking all that smack. Really, we're going to kill them this year. You put up 3 points the entire game. Like, seriously, that was pretty embarrassing. And then just one small note on the Colorado. Did you see they were throwing the ball with 1 minute left in the game? It was 28-9. They were throwing the ball at like midfield with a minute left. Like, what are you think? Are you that petty? Are you that stupid? Like, what are you?
I didn't see that, actually.
What are you doing in that situation? They threw it twice, and then they didn't get it. They ran it on third down with like 40 seconds left. It was just literally a small note to take forward. It's like, can you just be mature for 1 second, Deion Sanders, and not trying to A, run it up, but B, what if you throw a pick there and then you let them back in? Now it's a 2-score game, close to it's just some unbelievable coaching things there, some pettiness. So just something funny with Colorado every week. You always get something.
Yeah, Colorado doing Colorado things, to say the least. One of these weeks we won't talk about Colorado, but it's not going to be this week.
This might be the last week, yeah.
Hey, I think that's how it was last year too, by the way. I think we were talking about them for the first month, and then thankfully after that we never had to talk about them for another 8 months. So
yeah, they won't be competitive going forward in the Big 12. So
all right, let's kick it to the Big Ten. Indiana dominating UCLA. This was a game that I kind of thought could happen. I should have put it on the page. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I just didn't see it when I was looking. But I remember looking at this. I was dabbling on this one at the casino. Complete control over UCLA, 42-13 for Indiana to go out there. I mean, huge win for them. And I'll have more to say about Indiana later, but huge win for Indiana and for UCLA. I mean, complete train wreck. You're going to a new conference. You're not in a good spot. You weren't supposed to be good coming into the season, but now you just look, I mean, terrible. I don't think anybody thought they would be this bad, getting blown out by multiple touchdowns against the Indiana Hoosiers. But Indiana's in an interesting spot. They might find themselves 5-6-0, maybe 7-0, just the way that their schedules lined up. And there was a few teams nationwide that we talked about, and we'll probably get more to this as we get into some games next week. But huge opportunity ahead for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, Indiana was definitely one of our teams we were buying early on in the year. I think we bought them in the preseason, bought them in week 1. And they're looking every part. But the coach from JMU was talking a lot of smack. He was being very blunt about it, but he's backing it up, and they look really good. So that's why we want to touch on this. I think people have to start taking Indiana football very seriously going forward here. And yeah, UCLA, like, if you have any doubts about them, just look at that opening press conference that guy had, the Big Ten Media Days, where he was very inept to even do anything in a press conference. So weird. So just kind of describes where UCLA is at right now. They're going to be big underdogs in a bunch of games going forward. So Indiana up, UCLA way down.
I'm glad you brought that. I forgot about that press conference. What a disaster. I think he was telling the Big Ten media about UCLA and how they're near Los Angeles, and very, very interesting points by him.
Good geography lesson for everybody where UCLA was.
Indiana has got Charlotte, Maryland, and Northwestern up next, by the way. So huge opportunity to be 6-0. We did say it preseason. We did look at this and we said there's a shot, and here we are. It might actually come true. So Indiana dominates UCLA. Congratulations to them. UCF pays. This was your favorite final seconds against TCU, coming back. At this point, I was already too upset about the backyard brawl that I wasn't even coherent enough about this one and some other things also. But huge win, UCF. They get the cover, 35-34.
Yeah, I would have been very incoherent if UCF didn't win this game outright, so we would have been in the same shoes. But yeah, we touched on it earlier. But yeah, great win for UCF. I think people got to start taking them a little more serious. Their run game, if you haven't watched the game, is so legit. They are so good at running the ball with their quarterback, running back, outside, inside. They were literally running the ball like even when it was like a minute 30 left. Like they're just that confident in their run game, getting 12, 14 yards at a time. So TCU actually did impress me. They looked pretty solid in the games leading up to this. But they actually did impress for most of the game. So don't sleep on TCU. It was a tough loss for them, but they could be pretty viable going forward. I think they're a pretty solid team.
You think UCF could make a push for the Big 12 here?
I think they could. I mean, again, they're going to have to win games like this, 30-plus, because their defense still isn't that great. But I think they can make a push, but then maybe not a Big 12 championship or any noise in the playoff. But I think they could be right there as one of those teams in the mix, like we talked about, those 20-ish teams in late November.
No, I agree. One more game we'll kick here on week 3 before we get to the winners and losers of the week and week 4 preview. I know we're going on here a half an hour. This one just had to save for last. Absolute, not sure what was going on here in Lexington, but Georgia squeaking out the 13-12 win over Kentucky. I mean, if you want to call it a win, I did look historically. They have struggled there for some whatever reason, time and time again. But this game was just sloppy. Georgia looked bad. Kentucky didn't look good. And I know we could go on, and I know we don't want to go on too long here with this, so I'm just going to keep it really short. The one thing I want to hit on is the game. It is what it is. I mean, we all know it was terrible. Georgia did not look like the best team in the country on Saturday night. But I don't know what they are doing. Kentucky punting the ball back on a 4th down and manageable on Georgia's side of the field with a couple minutes left. Like, you need 15 yards to potentially kick a field goal to go ahead on the number 1 team in the country, a multiple touchdown favorite. You don't get many opportunities like this. I mean, you in college football, the margin of error in every sport, but like I just can't fathom Mark Stoops punting the ball. I mean, in what mind do you think you're going to go play defense and call timeout and get the ball back and then somehow go down on your final drive when you still only scored 12 points all game? And like, I'm not even going into what Georgia did wrong because they were bad and the officials were bad. And there are multiple things to go into this game, but that was my one takeaway is what are you doing punting the football?
Yeah, I think we touched on this with some of the teams in previous weeks in these similar situations. You're huge underdogs. You don't get these teams a lot. How many times are you going to have Georgia on the ropes at home at night? And I think they did it twice, if I remember. Can't remember exactly, but I think it was like 6-7 minutes left. They punted, and you're almost punting just to get the ball back right where you're at when you punted the ball. Like at best case scenario, they punted it, got a 3 and out from Georgia, got it exactly back where they were when they punted it. All you do is just waste time off the clock. So, yeah, this was mind-boggling. Again, are these coaches getting paid off? Like, what is going on that they will not be aggressive? It's almost like they just don't want to beat the other team and beat these number 1, number 2, number 3 seeded teams in the country. This blew my mind. It was crazy. And we were saying this when we live bet Georgia in the game. We wanted Georgia to win. And we're still like, how did Kentucky punt that? Like at the end, like it was crazy. So just insane. These underdog coaches, what are they doing? Why are they playing to like just lose by 1 or 2? It doesn't make any sense.
Live betting Georgia was a horrible decision. And the fact, though, that I was like 15 drinks in by Saturday night at the casino and I still knew to go for it on that 4th down and not punt the ball there just should speak volumes. I should have been calling the shots there for Kentucky. Not sure we would have won, but we would have given ourselves a chance.
Like we said, just your fans and everyone else would respect it. Like they'd be happier losing if you trying to be aggressive rather than punting and being like, we didn't get the ball back the rest of the game. They punted and didn't get the ball back. Do you think your fans and your coaches and your players, not even the fans, the people on the field, do you think they're going to be happy and be in the locker room and be like, well, good thing we punted there? Like, crazy.
And that just reminded me of that quote. I think Brandon Walker from Barstool last week, or somebody said it from Barstool. I think it was Walker. You never, after punting in a situation like that, ever, in one time, do you in the post-game press conference say, oh, that was a great decision to punt there? The fan base never says, oh, I'm glad they punted there. The media never is like, oh, what a punt that was, and won them the game. Very, very rarely, if ever, has that happened. I'm sure it's happened, but that doesn't happen. Unbelievable. Can't believe it. Winners and losers of the week. Enough about Georgia and Kentucky. That game annoyed me.
If this happens again next week and a big underdog doesn't do this, we're going to lose our minds.
I've already kind of lost my mind.
I know, yeah, we're almost there.
Winners and losers of the week. This should be fun. Mark Stoops is a loser of the week, but that won't be my official pick. But absolute choke job by them, not at least giving themselves a chance there. On a happier note, Jared, let's kick it to you. Who was your winner of the week 3 college football?
My winner of the week is Arch Manning, the quarterback of Texas. Came in, now filled in a role playing UTSA, being 35-point favorites when Quinn Ewers went out early in the game and looked great. And I just love hearing now all the talk about, should Arch Manning be the starter going forward? Should you take him in the Heisman odds when he literally has the same odds as Quinn Ewers? It dropped like 75,000 in the odds market. So like, just crazy, the overhype with it. Everyone wants him to be good. I think he could be starting anywhere in the country if he wants, but I think he's doing a different approach than what normally goes on, especially in today's day and age, and waiting your turn, getting more reps, waiting until you're fully ready to go to the starting role. So it was cool to see Arch get out there and play good. Yeah. And we're going to see him the next couple games because it looks like Ewers going to be out a couple games, not the rest of the season. But my winner of the week, give me Arch Manning, looking good and starting up some buzz, some QB controversy in Texas maybe.
Yeah. And a Manning that could run is a scary thought.
That's true. That's true too.
My winner of the week is the Indiana Hoosiers this week. Last week, I guess. Exciting times for them. And the reason I like to give some of these winners of the week to these teams, and not to just absolutely shit on Indiana after I just gave them the winner of the week, but not sure how long they're going to be in this situation. Not sure if things will always be bright in Indiana. So you're undefeated. Your schedule's favorable in a very tough Big Ten, but your schedule's looking good. You have some big games coming up. Take care of your next 3: Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern. Huge game against Nebraska late in season. That game's home. You play Washington, who looked terrible last week. You play Michigan State, who's not in a great spot. Big opportunities for Indiana. And I'm talking maybe 9 wins for the Hoosiers, maybe even 10. I don't want to say it, but maybe a 10-win season if all things go right for Indiana.
Yeah, and the crazy part is this is year 1 of a new scheme, a new regimen coming in with the head coach and everybody. So really cool to turn around this quickly. But yeah, I love Indiana being relevant in the football sphere.
I guess I'll start with the loser of the week just because you did winner first, and I'll kick it to you. Very disappointing times for the Mountain West Conference is my loser of the week. After the rumors of the Pac-12 officially coming back in 2 years, or the Pac-6, whatever you want to call it, stealing some schools from the Mountain West, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State. They're going to need a couple more. I'm just a little worried that the same thing is happening in college football, where we're going to steal from, the smaller conference and to try to rebuild. And unfortunately, Jared, I think the Mountain West might find themselves as the culprit here. If you are the commissioner of the Mountain West, I'm not sure who you are, and you have stumbled upon this Twitter video, I have a couple things to say to you. Figure it out before what happened to the Pac-12 happens to your conference. You got to start looking for teams now. Start looking for Idaho. Start looking for some of these other FCS schools, because you don't want, if once 4, 6, 7 teams are out, it's going to be really hard to rebuild. And not sure Mountain West has the same prestige that the Pac-12 conference did to be able to try to resurrect themselves. And I'm not saying the Pac-12 is out of the woods yet, and the conference is completely different. It's not really the Pac-12 anymore, obviously, but loser of the week, Mountain West. Got to try to fix this thing before things completely go south on you, because we already lost the Pac-12 at midnight. I don't want to lose Mountain West at 10 p.m. I don't want to miss the CBS Sports Network game kicking off at 10:30. So loser of the week, Mountain West. Let's hope it's not loser of the decade.
That's a great call, Case. I love that one. A story that kind of came out early in the week, I think people forgot about it because it broke on like Monday or Tuesday. So love shine some light in the Mountain West. I agree. The cannibalization going around country, like we're not going to be able to get used to these conferences because teams are just going to keep moving around. So I'm with you there. We got to stop at some point with this. in and out, because then we're not going to have a group of 5 at the end of the day. But good job shedding some light on that. My loser of the week, I'm going to go to Mississippi State. This might have been a game that nobody was watching or nobody was entitled to. Mississippi State and Toledo. Toledo came into Mississippi State, beat them 41-7. Yes, I had to write it down because I couldn't believe that it actually was 41-7. And Toledo's not even that good as they were in years past. What is going on in Mississippi State? Like, this is a huge, huge loss. They were 10, 11-point favorites going in the game. You let a MAC school like this come into your building. I know, Notre Dame jokes aside, but to get blown out 41-7, this wasn't even a close game.
True.
Some to keep in mind, Mississippi State is rebuilding. They have a new coach, first-year head coach, but to get blown out like this on your home turf like that, just wild to think about. So Mississippi State, loser of the week for me.
Great call on that Mississippi State. Complete disarray. Rest in peace, Mike Leach, by the way, but complete disarray at Mississippi State. Not good. Blown out at home. Things are not looking good. They do have Florida, though. That might be an interesting game.
Absolutely game. Yeah, let's see who could be worse.
State. But I like it. Okay, so that's winners and losers of the week. Week 4 preview. I know we're already at 41 minutes. I don't know how this happened, but we'll try to get this thing going. Illinois at Nebraska tomorrow night. This is a ranked matchup. This is one of my favorite games of the year. I just can't believe we got Illinois back in the top 25. We got Nebraska looking better, looking good, unbeatens, national broadcast, standalone game. Quick fact for you, Jared. Illinois 3-0, first time since 2011. Mm-hmm. Nebraska 3-0, first time since 2016. 8 years for them, over a decade for Illinois. I don't think Illinois is going to win this game. I'd like to say they could, but it's a tough place to play. Nebraska, it's got all the hype in the world. I know this is a recipe for maybe a Nebraska absolute flop, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm actually buying into this a little bit. I think they're going to cover. So mark that down. I think Nebraska will cover. I think they're going to win by at least double digits. Nothing to take away from Illinois. It's just a tough spot for you. Defense, if Illinois could win this game, it will be because of their defense, and it will be because of their defensive front and trying to slow this game down and run the ball and old Big Ten football, but should be a fun one.
Yeah, I can't believe we're seeing these two teams with 2 numbers next to their names.
Awesome.
22 ranked matchup Friday night again. I mean, what more do we want as sports bettors? This game I'm torn on. I kind of like Nebraska initially. I'm kind of with you. I think they could kind of blow this game open. Given 8, though, I think is a little steep. But I do think Nebraska's legit. I think they're a legit top 25 team. I'm not so sold on Illinois. But it's going to be a fun matchup. Low total, laying a lot of points, a little tough. But yeah, I like Nebraska to win this game. Just not sure how much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But we'll see what happens with Nebraska. I just don't know if Illinois could keep up scoring. If they get in a hole, I just don't know if Illinois is going to be able to answer quickly. And that's my only reason why I think I'd lean Nebraska -8. Total on that one, by the way, is 43. On the Saturday games, North Carolina State going to Clemson. Both teams got killed by an SEC school already this year. 46.5 is the total. Clemson, obviously, multiple touchdown favorite. I don't even know really what to think of this game. I think I lean Clemson just because NC State has proven me wrong already this year. They were my dark horse team in the ACC, and they just have not lived up to par there. And Clemson's kind of trying to resurrect themselves after that tough beatdown week 1 against Georgia. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, this game's interesting. I think it was supposed to be a big game going into the year. NC State's fallen off a cliff, like we already talked about in previous weeks. I don't know what's going on. They struggled with Louisiana Tech last week. They were down at halftime.
Yeah.
So we had to win by 7 or 10 points. We'll get to Louisiana Tech later in the segment here in the program. But yeah, I just want to touch on Clemson a little bit because I think everyone saw that first week game against Georgia. Who looks good against Georgia in week 1? We know Oregon got smacked that one year when Dan Lanning's first year. They ended up winning the Pac-12, I think, later that year and did a good job. So I think Clemson, a lot of people are selling them a lot. So just maybe a team to maybe keep your eye on. Don't maybe sell all these teams after week 1 if they get killed by a top 5 team, in their own building, basically in Atlanta there. So just something like that. But in this game particularly, yeah, I guess I'd maybe lean Clemson. It's -20.5. This is something we'll talk about some future games. these summer numbers or the preseason lines, this game was not even close to 20.5. So some of these market adjustments are insane. We'll get to a couple later on. So don't love laying 20.5. Maybe lean under in this game. I think they got two good defenses. NC State might have a quarterback injury as well, so maybe just monitor that. So I'd probably lean under here as a play.
Yeah. Under might be the move. ACC wide open for Clemson too, by the way. I like how a lot of people were writing them off. I mean, they're complete, I'd say, in the driver's seat for number 4 in the country when things are all said and done if they win the conference. So good game there. It'll be interesting to see. Southern Cal going to Michigan on Saturday. This one I'm looking forward to also. USC obviously gets the big win over LSU early in the season. Miller Moss playing well there. Your 5.5-point favorite going to the Big House. I feel like a lot of people were crowning USC a little early after that win. I think USC is good. I definitely, think they're a contender for the college football playoff appearance. Maybe Big Ten. We'll see. A lot of things way too early to even talk about that. But you go to Michigan. You're a 5.5-point favorite. Interesting spot for Michigan. Historically, you don't see Michigan lose by multiple touchdowns at home in September, really ever. I mean, no matter what Michigan is in any given year, they're at home. You already got through Texas. I think Texas is obviously number 1, number 2 team in the country. I know you got killed there, but now you got USC coming to town. First Big Ten game on the road. 5.5, interesting spot. We'll talk about it a little later. What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, initially I like the under. I think both these defenses are very improved. I think you'll see not a ton of offense in this game, so I'd probably lean under. I'm with you, and this was another game. This was probably the biggest swing in the summer. This was plus 6-7 USC. Now they're giving 6 or 7 now in this case, 5.5. Just an absolute adjustment. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm buying that much adjustment. We're big on USC too. We like them going forward. But again, you can't just bet a team every week because you like them. You got to take into account each spot, each situation. So I wouldn't love laying 5.5 with a team that I know is going to try and slow the game down, running the ball and stuff. So just a little tough. I think the hype might be a little bit too much on USC, but just because we don't like them this week in this spot doesn't mean we don't like them as a whole for the rest of the year. But yeah, I'm seeing a slugfest in this one. I maybe lean under again in this one.
Yeah, and I don't think Michigan's a contender in the Big Ten at this point, but they have figured out themselves a little bit of identity on offense, making the quarterback switch, sticking to the run. At least they know what they need to do to win this game. You got to play really good defense. You got to be able to run the ball. If they could do those two things, Michigan is going to be in this game late in the fourth quarter and could get the win. Michigan getting 5.5 at home. Arkansas and Auburn. I think is game day there, or no, not game day. Barstool went there. Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn is a 3-point favorite. Total is 56.5. Not sure what to think about this one. Auburn lost to Cal early in the season. Arkansas almost gets the huge win over Oklahoma State. I guess it's a big game for each of these schools individually, but not really any national implications on that one. Auburn -3. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think this should be an interesting matchup, like you said, to see where these two teams are at. We got a nice data point from Arkansas last week at Oklahoma State that kind of looked the part, looked pretty good. Defense still needs to shore up some things. And Auburn, like you said, lost to Cal. A lot of question marks there. They made a quarterback change. So it's going to be interesting to see where that backup quarterback now comes in and what he does there. And that was just a benching. That wasn't even an injury that happened with Auburn, I found out today. So interesting game. Maybe we'd lean over in this game, have a little fun with the 56.5. But again, maybe more just a watch in this game. Maybe no plays on this one.
Number 12, Utah, 2.5-point favorite going to number 14, Oklahoma State. Big 12 implications on the line. Cam Rising, is he healthy? Is he hurt? Nobody seems to know. He's healthy one week, then he's hurt the next week. But should be a good one in Stillwater. Big game. Utah, first time on the road here in the new conference, laying 2.5 total set at 54. That one Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think we got to start with the Cam Rising injury like we talked about. He didn't play last week, but he suited up, was ready to go. I think there's some gamemanship there. But against Utah State, I'm not sure what they were trying to do there. But yeah, I've heard it's a broken finger. I've heard it might be a cut on the finger. He's okay, a couple stitches. Like, the injury reports are so hard to find out in college. So, and he's a big part of this game. He's a huge handicap. If they go to their backup, it's going to be pretty bad. If he's playing, he's fully healthy. Utah should be in control of this game, but with the uncertainty, I would lean Oklahoma State plus the points in this game. A little bit larger play probably on the over in this game. I think there'll be a lot of points scored, hopefully, if Cam Rising is healthy. But I think it opened up Oklahoma State -3.5, swung now back to Utah plus or -3. So I think I would kind of wait a little bit. Hopefully this gets up to 3, maybe take the home team here, Oklahoma State. And just with a lot of teams, we talked about the inconsistency last week, but somebody mentioned that there's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde teams. I think Oklahoma State could be a Jekyll and Hyde team. They look so good some weeks, like last week, they won 45-0 and killed Tulsa. I mean, it was just Tulsa, but they looked really sharp. But then in Arkansas, they struggled the whole first half, looked really good the second half. So Oklahoma State, a very interesting team. I think they could be a top 3 team in the Big 12, maybe go for a Big 12 championship, or they could get blown out of the spot. I think they're a huge team.
Yeah, I think I lean Oklahoma State, honestly, at home with the points in that one. They do have to go to Kansas State next week, though. So we'll see. Could they be looking ahead? I'm not sure. I mean, there's not a lot to look ahead to. The whole conference is kind of wide open, but interesting spot for this game. Oklahoma State is getting some points here at home.
Yeah, we'll really learn a lot about Oklahoma State. This was a tough stretch for them with Utah and then back-to-back Kansas State, the top 2 teams in the Big 12. So
yeah,
they show well here. Look out. They can make a run. If not, they might be in the middle of the Big 12.
And we'll just stick in the Big 12 here because I know we're getting tight on time. We'll circle back to the other games, but Kansas State too, I just touched on them. They are in the driver's seat also in the Big 12. They go to BYU this week. Kansas State, 6.5-point favorite. This is a sneaky game. A lot of people online picking BYU to potentially get the upset at home, not only cover, but maybe win. Kansas State too, obviously they're looking ahead to Oklahoma State next week. So kind of an interesting spot for these 3 teams, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, kind of the 3 front runners in the Big 12 right now, laying 6.5 at BYU. That game's at 10:30 on Saturday.
Yeah, I think BYU had a great win against SMU. We're not sure how good SMU is. Then last week they went to Wyoming. I had Wyoming plus the points. Tough spot to win in Wyoming. They usually don't lose a lot of games in grand fashion. They won by 17-21. So BYU looking like a sneaky good team. The only thing on this game, BYU struggled in the past to stop the run, and Kansas State's a huge run-heavy team. If BYU could stop the run, they could be live in this game. If not, it could be a long night. So this could be a big one to see if BYU's legit. We kind of know Kansas State's really solid, had a really good performance last Friday in that game we previewed against Arizona. Yeah. So going to look out for BYU here. Let's see if they can kind of keep this game close. This line came down a lot. I don't know if I take it at 6.5. I don't know if I trust BYU that much, but Kansas State's been in some high leverage games the last couple of weeks, so they might be a little gassed. Interesting game at 10:30.
Yeah, and that game too, last Friday, Kansas State, Arizona, obviously was almost a week ago. Forgot we haven't really even talked since that game. Huge win for Kansas State. I mean, that was awesome. Big win for them. They looked really good and really solidified their ranking there. And surprised me, I did have Arizona in that game. Kansas State gets the huge win there at home. Number 8, Miami going to South Florida. I guess that's due to geographic map there, not a far trip. Laying 16.5. Total set at 65. USF, interesting team. Some people picking them to be the group of 5 representative. And then we got Miami, who could finally be the season for them to get over the hump in the ACC. What are you thinking in this one?
I mean, Miami looked good. I think they had a bye week, didn't play last week. Or no, they played a Ball State bye week.
Right.
But they looked the part. I mean, they're crushing teams. Their offense looks explosive. But I kind of like USF in this game a little bit. Maybe not a huge max play, but I kind of like them. If you get them at 17, I kind of like that number. Kind of like the over a little bit, but give me USF to kind of keep this within range. Like we talked about in that Alabama game that they kept close and covered by a lot. This team could score. So if you get a team, get a couple stops, maybe score 21 points, well, Miami has to put up so much more than that. So it's, if they could score their points, USF, they should be the driver's seat to cover this game. I don't know if they could win outright. I'm not expecting that, but I think USF could keep this close. I think they're better than people think, like we saw in that Alabama game.
Yeah, and that's under the lights at home, so it should be a fun one, something to watch here Saturday night. If you don't like points, you could tune into this game, Big Ten, Iowa at Minnesota, one of my favorites of the week for sure. Total set at 35.5. I already hit the over once bet in Iowa this year. I don't know if I could go 2 for 2 with them, but going to Minnesota has kind of looked okay. I know they played, I think, 2 nobodies the last 2 weeks, but back-to-back shutouts after losing to North Carolina week 1 in a game that they almost won. They could have been 3-0. Circling back, not sure why Minnesota launched fireworks after that loss to North Carolina, but nonetheless, here we are 3 weeks later. Iowa 2.5-point favorite at Minnesota. I don't know. I might lean Minnesota here to win this game. Total at 35.5. I don't think I could say one way or the other if I think it's going to go over or under on that one. Probably under, but should be fun, or probably not if you like points. But anyway, it'll be fun for me. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, not doing another Iowa over that didn't give you enough stress and anxiety in that game. Covering a point or two
overtime.
Yeah, very low total in this one as well. This should be a fun one. Classic Big Ten. A lot of teams are kind of changing their stripes. These teams are not. It's going to be a run heavy, right up the middle, punting a lot. So if you love punting, love defense, this is the game for you. I would lean Iowa. I'm just not too high on Minnesota, but again, not a strong play. But obviously would look to a money line. Don't want to lay points in a game with a total of 35. But give me the Hawkeyes to get a nice road win here at Minnesota.
Not high on Minnesota. Come on, Jared. Bright things ahead for Minnesota.
I'm glad you're positive about them.
All right. Well, that takes us to probably the biggest game of the week. Game day there. Number 6, Tennessee. Is it finally the year they could get back to the college football playoff national championship implications? They've looked good so far, but they haven't beaten anybody. They beat Kent State 430-0 last week, laying 7 on the road in Norman, Oklahoma. Oklahoma getting a warm welcome here to the SEC with a home game. Got Tennessee coming to town. Total set at 57.5. I just want to say a couple of quick things on this game before I kick it to you. The spread is weird. It's -7. This makes me feel like Tennessee is going to win this game by 25, 30 points, or Oklahoma is going to just somehow win this game in a close one. I think Tennessee does win. So that's number 1. So before anybody calls me crazy, I do think Tennessee's going to game. But the recipe for Oklahoma to get this win, I feel like they just have to pressure. They've been pretty good on the pass rush this year. They have multiple sacks. They got to pressure Tennessee. The D-line's got to come up. They got to pressure them all night. You're at home. Got to get the crowd involved. Get a couple sacks. And Oklahoma's offense hasn't looked good at all. I mean, they look terrible against Houston. But Tennessee, the one thing they really haven't done great so far is the pass rush. And they haven't gotten to the quarterback. And if Oklahoma could just find a way to slow this game down, and I know we talk about that in a lot of these upset implication games, if Oklahoma could try to slow this game down, get to the quarterback, and if their O-line could hold up and, Tennessee's can't get to Oklahoma, then I think we could get a ball game here late in the fourth quarter. That being said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Tennessee will hang on. But weird line, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, lots to break down. Definitely the game of the weekend. Should be really exciting. I'm like you. I first saw the number -7 on the road against your first SEC game for both teams of the year.
Yes,
just a weird spot. Yeah, it kind of moved. I think it was 3 in the summer, so now moved up to 7. I initially would like to take Oklahoma, but then the more I dug into it, I just don't know if I can. I get flashbacks of taking NC State and then seeing them lose 51-10. This Tennessee team is just so explosive. I think if you start with the Tennessee offense, I think this will be a great, great test. We always talk about it. I thought NC State would be, but that game kind of got a little wonky, and NC State's pretty terrible as we see it. Yeah. Oklahoma has a probably top 25 defense, maybe top 20 defense. If they could look and still, move the ball like they are, running it, passing it deep, being explosive, that'll be a huge test. Okay, they could actually compete with some of these big boys offensively in the SEC. And I want to see how good Oklahoma's defense is. They played pretty good against some decent teams like Houston, Tulane, nothing crazy, starting with some new programs. So how legit are both the Oklahoma defense and the Tennessee offense? I think we'll definitely figure that out. And then the other side of the ball, I'm not too sold on Oklahoma's offense. Like you said, they struggled against some really bad competition. I think Tennessee will definitely be the best defense they face. And I think this side of the ball, we talked about this a lot in the NC State game. You have to beat Tennessee through the air. You have to be able to push the ball downfield. Their secondary is not that great. Pass rush hasn't been there yet. They have some nice players on the D-line, but you're maybe not going to be able to run the ball. You need to throw against Tennessee. I don't know if Oklahoma could do that. I don't like their receivers. The quarterback has been very spotty. So I will maybe look to fade Tennessee in a spot down the line against an Alabama or a Georgia where a line might be baked into Tennessee being really good at that time because they could threaten them downfield and actually, look to exploit them, especially Alabama. I just don't think Oklahoma can. I think their defense could keep them in the game, Oklahoma. So that's why I'm gonna have a play on the under. Again, I like 57 and a half. I think if Oklahoma can keep Tennessee's offense down to an average pace, I don't see Oklahoma scoring a lot. You just can't have Tennessee go nuclear in this sense. So I think it's kind of correlated. If you like the over, I think take Tennessee. If you like the under, maybe lean Oklahoma. But I want to take a side in this game because it's going to be a nice primetime game to watch. But I'm so torn on either side. I could see it going both ways. I would trust Tennessee more, so I'd probably lean Tennessee -7 if I had to play, just because of their explosiveness. But I'm gonna have a nice chunk on the under 57.5.
Yeah, I think under's the play. I think you convinced me there. Oklahoma, I think, might have a trouble scoring in this game, and if their defense could hold up to try to slow down and keep them in it, I think that is a recipe for an under. At 57.5. But either way, in Oklahoma, and that was my initial thought too, SEC going on the road -7. I mean, I feel like that's a lot, but I feel like it's all like one of these trap games where you want to take Oklahoma with a touchdown with 7, maybe by a point, 8.5, and then we get in one of those scenarios where Tennessee is just, halftime 17-0 or 21-3, and then second half, they score once more or twice more, and this game gets out of hand pretty quickly. Because their offense so far has been able to score at will. I know they didn't play anybody. Chattanooga 69-3. North Carolina State put up over 50 last week. Kent State 71-0. Kent State's not, put the Hazleton area high school team out there. You could probably get the same result in that one. But either way, this will be the first of any sort of test for Tennessee's offense going up against a formidable defense.
And just one more quick point: the quarterback for Tennessee, Nico, weird last name.
Yeah, Langaleva or whatever.
Yeah, he played against Iowa in the bowl game at a neutral site. He played against NC State, which was a neutral site. That was not at NC State. This is his first big road test that he's ever played. He didn't start last year.
It's a good point.
This first true road game on the road in a pretty hostile environment at Oklahoma. Game day there, like you said, at night. It's not at the big noon kickoff. So going to be interesting to see. He's a true sophomore playing in this first type of atmosphere here in a hostile environment. So that's also I kind of like the under instead of taking Tennessee potentially, but maybe Tennessee money line could be a nice little piece in some parlays if you're thinking.
Yeah, no, I do. That's an interesting fact about the quarterback first true road game. So that one definitely game of the week. All in all, a decent slate this week. We found some good ones last week when it didn't look like a strong slate. We're finally starting to get into some bigger with the SEC games, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and it's only going to be getting bigger and bigger from here on out through the rest of the year. So that's our week 4 preview. Now we're over an hour, so that means it's time for the P&B bets of the week. Obviously, if you're listening, we got the full card will be out on Saturday morning. If you're coming over from Uncle Lou's YouTube channel, we appreciate you, and hopefully you're not taking our picks every time because you'd be probably losing money in week 2 and week 3. But we're hoping to get over 50% now. Week 4 bets, Mr. Paisley, I'll let you kick it off. What are you seeing that you like here on this Thursday?
I'm going to start off with a Vanderbilt plus 21.5 against Missouri. This game is in Missouri. I just think the number's too high here. Vanderbilt had a tough loss at Georgia State. It was kind of a weird spot for them. They were only 8-9 point favorites on the road to a group of 5 team. Georgia State played really well. But the way Vanderbilt plays, I think, could play into this number being closer. I think they're a run-first team. They have a dual-threat quarterback. Their defense, they have a defensive head coach. I think they'll shore things up a little bit on the back end. So I just think this number is a little too high. Like we talked about Missouri, we're not fully sold on them yet. To maybe crush some of these actual teams instead of Murray State and Buffalo that they played. So I think this number is a little too high. Give me the hook on the plus 21 with Vanderbilt.
I like it. Big win also already this year for Vandy, knocking off Virginia Tech
right.
Early in the season. And my first pick is going to be Rutgers with 3.5 going to Virginia Tech. So VT, the victim here twice. I think Rutgers could win this game outright. I really do. VT hasn't impressed me at all yet this season. I think Rutgers is on the up. We kind of bought into them too. I think their season total was like 5.5. I like the over. Their schedule lined up nice. This is a big game for them, and it's a test for sure. Getting 3.5 points, though, I feel like this could be such low scoring where I'll gladly take those points. I'm taking Rutgers, 3.5 points on the road at VT.
I like that. I actually took that myself plus 5.5 when it opened up on Sunday. And
very nice.
So note, if you guys are very college football heavy, lines come out Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon around 1, 2 when everyone's watching the NFL. So sometimes if you want to hop on some of these lines before they start moving, if you have a good feel on them, take a look Sunday afternoon. And then my second pick, not going to dive too deep because we talked about this, USC Michigan under 46. I like this one a lot. Keep it close. We talked about Alex Orji now coming in for quarterback of Michigan, who does not throw the ball at all and can't. So he's going to be running it like crazy. They might run it 50 times here. I think USC could struggle a little bit. They're not going to have a ton of success. I still like USC to win the game. But give me under 46 in the USC Michigan game.
I like the under. That's a good pick. Northwestern at Washington. Washington laying 10.5. I'm going to lay those points with the Huskies. They're not a good football team right now. They lost to Washington State, but I don't think Northwestern could score really at all. And you got to go to Washington. I mean, that's not an easy trip. They're got to go out there. And 10.5 points, this could be one of those games where it's going to be sloppy, might be lower scoring than you're used to seeing with Washington. And then you get late in the fourth quarter and Washington finds himself up anywhere from 10 to 13 points, maybe a little block punt into it, maybe a Northwestern missed field goal. But I just don't really see how Northwestern could keep this game very close. I just think Washington's a little bit better. I think they're more talented, even with their flaws so far this year's on defense, really more so. But it'll be interesting to see that Northwestern offense go against the Washington defense. But I still would be surprised if they could find themselves scoring a lot. And that's why I'm just going to lay the points there with Washington at minus 10.5.
I like it. For my third pick, I'm going to roll with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at home against the Toledo Rockets that we mentioned before. Western Kentucky getting 3. I think the wrong team is favored in this spot, and I like it even more because Toledo won the week before. I think this is a tough spot for Toledo to go down to Mississippi, win that huge game, have to go back down to Kentucky after traveling back home. So I think this could be a tough spot for Toledo, especially with winning that game, being all hyped up. I think Western Kentucky, nobody really talks about them a lot. No one talks about a lot of Group of 5 teams. Could be the second best team in the Conference USA right behind Liberty. So I like Western Kentucky a lot this year. I think their offense is pretty solid. So give me Western Kentucky maybe to win it outright, but I'll take them +3 against the Rockets.
One thing, Western Kentucky, I always pick them when it comes bowl season and we're doing the college football bowl contest. I always pick Western Kentucky, whoever they're playing. And shout out
alma mater.
My final one here, and then I think Paige, you got one more. I'm going to lay the points again with Oregon State. Welcoming Purdue. Purdue just got absolutely ripped apart by the high-powered Notre Dame Fighting Irish offense, destroying them. I think Purdue's morale's low. I don't think they were very good coming into the season. I think that proved even more so last week. Notre Dame just looked like they just did whatever they wanted for 4 straight quarters in that game. Oregon State not laying a lot. This is one of those games. I just think they're a little bit better. I do think they're better. I think they're at home. I would take Oregon State on a neutral field here. Need 4.5. Could be a field goal game, but I have enough faith in Oregon State to get over and beat Purdue by a touchdown here. I'm going to lay the points with the Beavers, minus 4.5, welcoming Purdue to town.
I always like when you shout out Notre Dame and how good they are, so that makes me feel good. Just a slight bonus pick. Maybe look at Miami of Ohio, +28. I think they might be just as good as NIU or maybe along their lines. I think Notre Dame will be obviously. They'll have they'll be ready for this game unlike the week 2 matchup, but just a little bonus pick. Maybe look at that if it gets above 28. This one, a little fun pick here. Give me the Penn State Nittany Lions, minus 49 against Kent State. We're fading Kent State again. And one big reason, My guy, James Franklin, head coach, loves to run it up on these schools. They have a bye week. They rested. They're prepared for 2 weeks for this game. He knows what the spread is going into the games. He loves to push it over that number. So I have full confidence in James. If it's close to 49 at the end of the game, he's going to push in a late touchdown with 10 seconds left to run this over the 49 that we need to cover. Kent State is terrible, like we talked about. So Nittany Lions, give me the -49 at home against Kent State.
They have been playing the Kent State march band every day at Penn State practices. I'm hearing rumors. So they're ready. 2 straight full weeks preparing for Kent State. Should be a good one. I agree, actually. I was high on Tennessee against Kent State. I just don't think – I feel like Penn State should be able to just do what they want for 4 straight quarters. The only way they don't cover this is if they are just like trying different things late in like third quarter and they're just got backups in and they're just kind of seeing what works, what they could get away with. I don't know, but it should be a fun one. Wouldn't put my life savings in it, but I do think they could cover the 49. So
James will keep the starters in. Don't worry.
I hope you're right.
He loves these. He doesn't love the big primetime games when he plays Ohio State or Michigan, but he loves these games against these MAC schools where he's favored by a lot. Smash spot for Penn State. Let's do it.
They should, as they should. All right, we'll quickly get into the P&B parlay of the week, and then we'll get to the bet of the last week. So P&B parlay of the week, we're given 2 underdog picks here to try to win it outright. Last week we had Florida International, who did not win. I had Florida; they did not win. Florida screwed us both. Didn't get it, but that's all right. As you said, Jared, before the show, we really only need to hit about one of these every 5 weeks. So I'd say maybe twice. If we could hit 2 this year, I'd say it's a pretty good success rate on the odds we're getting. I'll start on it. I'm going to go with a pick that you may not be in love with here, but you're at home. You got a visitor coming to town that hasn't been there in a long time, a conference game, Michigan, to win outright over Southern Cal. I know we're going along on a podcast here, but we may have crowned Southern Cal too early. I don't know. But we just may have over the big win against LSU. The spread is shifting so much in this game. And I just think Michigan could play good enough defense to keep this game close and find a way to win at home late in the fourth quarter here. Give me Michigan plus 170 outright to get the win.
I don't hate it, but I think people are just remembering that Texas game. Is USC Texas? I don't think so. They're given just about the same amount of points. So again, I don't love USC to win and crush them, but again, we got to be a little crazy sometimes at these money line parlays. And again, a little bit to win a lot. We're not putting a ton on this, so don't mind the Michigan pick. Let's go Wolverines in that one for the parlay. I'm going to go down to the Tulsa Hurricanes playing against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs that we mentioned earlier. I think Louisiana Tech is terrible. I think they're bad. We're going to try and fade another bad team again. Tulsa just got smashed by Oklahoma State. That's even better for betting purposes. They're going to be focused, ready to go this week. They're going to have a little chip on their shoulder. So Tulsa around the 2.5, 3-point mark. Louisiana Tech should not be favored in any game this year. I have their under win total for the season. So give me Tulsa, the Hurricanes, to win outright plus 124 for total parlay odds of plus 504. And we also gave this out last week, and it shifted downwards once it got to Saturday. So if you want to get that plus 504 value, make sure you lock that in as soon as you hear this podcast on Thursday.
Yeah. And if you want to ride the game with or the bets with us, get on it. Michigan and Tulsa to win outright. We will be parlaying those two together and see what happens there on Saturday. So the second official P&B parlay, Michigan and Tulsa, tying them together. So bet of the week. I didn't get a bet of the week. Jared, I believe you didn't get a bet of the week. So we don't have one to share right now, but that's okay. This is just a reminder. If you want to be featured, if you have a bet that you hit the previous week, could be anything, any cool hit, a live bet, maybe an obscure bet, a prop bet, something with a large line, whatever you're thinking, send it to us, comment it below, or just direct messaging it to us is fine as well. And we may possibly feature that on the show. Just something to do. Might be a little fun to spice things up for next week. But So we'll see if we get one there. A lot of different things potentially bet on. I think week 1 it was minus 70.5 for it was plus 70.5 for Furman. So that was a good one. So if you have anything crazy, feel free to send it our way. And I guess that's pretty much it for the show for this week. I know we went a little bit over time, sitting at an hour 15, but should be a fun week of college football. And I guess we will see you guys back here next Thursday.